The story begins in Bogota, Colombia, where a businessman named Elijah Clark meets with a drug dealer for a business deal. However, the product to be sold this time isn't a drug, but something much more powerful. The drug dealer's son, Jeronimo, shows Elijah a drive that can access anything on the internet, including stocks, power kills, email, and so on. He even demonstrates this by blowing up a plane close to their location. After this, he blacks out all of Bogota, and this impresses Elijah. Unknown to them,
device can access anything on the net.
Some Colombian agents are in the bushes, hoping to catch them in the middle of their deal. However, since their communications are cut off due to the blackout, they decide to move in right away. Meanwhile, the drug dealer is also hoping to make a deal with Elijah, but suddenly, Elijah shoots Geronimo and tries to take the drive. Shootouts between Elijah and the drug dealer's men begin, and the hard drive is caught between them. Soon the agents also join in on the fun. But Elijah manages to escape. The drug dealer, who is now injured, ends up getting shot by one of the agents. The agent then sees the drive and picks it up. A few weeks later, the agent contacts the CIA with the plan to sell the device to them for $3 million. Apparently, he's under heat from several organizations that want the device, so he wants to disappear with his family. The news of his contact gets to CIA agents, Marks and Nick. They go out to meet another agent, Mace, who beats men for fun. And she is deployed with Nick to find the agent in Paris. The agents are to pretend to be a married couple on their honeymoon, and luckily for them, they're already romantically involved. Soon, they arrive in Paris and head over to a cafe to meet up with the agent. Nick sits beside the agent and puts the bag filled with cash on the ground, while Mace goes into the cafe to order drinks. After Mace gets back with Nick, the lady at the counter comes over and spills the drinks on them. She uses the opportunity to pick up Nick's bag and dips. The agent, Luis, also gets spooked and takes off running. As a result of this, Mace goes after the counter lady, while Nick goes after Luis. The chase gets intense, and Mace ends up following the lady into an underground train station. There, the lady ambushes her, and they fight. However, the lady manages to escape from Mace and get onto the incoming train. She blows a kiss at Mace as she leaves and checks the bag afterwards. However, she doesn't find anything else but cash in it. Nick, on the other hand, continues to chase Luis, but ends up losing him. Suddenly, he's cornered by a man, who points a gun at him. Behind the man is Elijah, who asks him for the drive. Sadly, Nick doesn't have it, so Elijah shakes his head in disappointment. Meanwhile, Luis gets back to his hotel room and suddenly hears a knock at the door. He opens the door only to find out it's his therapist, Graciela. Graciela is also a member of the Colombia operative, and she's been flown into Paris to help convince Luis to give up the device. On the other hand, the lady from the counter, Marie Schidmet, is also an agent who works for the Berlin intelligence agency, and they're also looking for the device. Even though she's the agent on the case, her boss wants her off it. He claims she never follows orders and doesn't have a partner she trusts. Marie, however, insists on continuing the job, forcing her boss to hesitantly give in. Back at the CIA headquarters, Mace is under scrutiny for losing the agency's money, and she's being interrogated by her boss, Marks. He gives her the news of Nick's death, and Mace goes to the bathroom to process it. After a short while with herself, she returns to Marks and asks to be put back on the mission. However, he refuses to put her on it officially and advises her to do it on her own. Using that as her go-ahead, Mace heads over to London to recruit help. In London, she meets Khadija, who used to be an agent as well. She tells her about the device and how important it is to retrieve it before it ends up with the bad guys. Unfortunately, Khadija claims she's done with that life and refuses to help. Soon, her boyfriend Abdel comes along, and she introduces him to Mace. After the pleasantries, they all head their separate ways. However, Mace goes back to meet with Khadija by breaking into her home. She tells her about Nick's death and how the world will be toast if the bad guys get their hands on the device. Finally, Khadija agrees to help her, and they hop on the computer. Khadija finds information on the lady who stole the money, Marie. It turns out her father sold information to the Russians in the early 90s, and she's been under suspicion of being a double agent ever since. They also try to find out what happened to Nick, but the camera's blind spots wouldn't let them. In the end, they decide to go to Paris and look for Luis at his hotel. Meanwhile, in Paris, Graciela manages to convince Luis to give up the device, and after this, they head out to get the device. Surrounded by security, Luis takes the device out of a locker, but unknown to him, he's been followed by Marie. Khadija and Mace also enter the scene, and they hope Marie will create the distraction they need. As expected, Marie takes down one of the guards, and Luis gets alerted. He takes Graciela and tries to run away, but he's suddenly shot by one of his guards. Luckily for him, another person intervenes, but the guard kills him and runs off with the device. Meanwhile, Marie is also dragged into a room by Mace, and they try to settle their beef the old way. While that fight continues, Luis bleeds out on the floor, and Graciela screams for help. Suddenly, he brings out a tracker and registers her prints on it. Meanwhile, Marie manages to get the better of Mace, and she sees Luis on the ground. She then goes after the shooter, whom Khadija has managed to follow outside. She quickly tells Mace about it, and she hurries outside too. The shooter tries to get on a boat, and he climbs through containers to get to it. Marie bursts into the scene like Micah Richards, and tries shooting at him, but she misses. Khadija and Mace also try to get close to him, but he gets on the boat and escapes. After missing out on the shooter, Marie goes back to the scene and sees that Graciela has been taken in by the police. With a fake tag, she steals Graciela from the police and takes her to a hotel. However, Graciela insists on talking to her family, and Marie allows her. After the call, Marie asks her about the device, but Graciela claims she doesn't know anything about it. Suddenly, Mace and Khadija barge in, and Marie enters defense mode. However, Khadija manages to calm everyone down, and suggests they join forces since they have a common enemy. Then, she approaches Graciela and gets the tracker from her. However, the tracker only works with Graciela's fingerprints, and even though she wants to go home to her family, she has to come with them to the device's location, Morocco. The next day, they arrive in the streets of Morocco to look for the device. Graciela handles the tracker, and Marie stays with her. Mace is also amongst the crowd, but Khadija is the one with a view of the shooter, so she tells them about his movements. Suddenly, the shooter makes a handoff with a stranger and heads in the opposite direction. Now, the girls have to split up and track both of them down, and tries shooting at him. He witnesses the shooter being attacked and killed by some strange men, assumed to be after the device as well. After this, they set their sights on the other person, who now has the drive. Mace tails the guy, while Graciela almost pees her pants out of fear. Marie gives her a gun to protect herself and follows the killers. However, the device holder suddenly enters the men's bathroom, and this creates another problem for Mace, who can't follow him there. At that moment, Khadija steps in and blends in using her African roots and her fluency in Arabic. However, she's caught by some of the killers, but Mace jumps in to help her take them down.
Using this place as a cut through to shake.
Meanwhile, Marie takes down the people following the guy with the device, and the guy, unaware of what's happening, keeps walking like he owns the market. In a series of events, Marie takes down all the killers, but the device holder is out of reach. Just then, Graciela suggests a brilliant idea, and they implement it. With Graciela's strategy, they bump into the device holder and steal it from him. Later at their hotel, Khadija checks through the drive and sees how dangerous the drive really is. Then, they go over to the CIA branch in Morocco and give the device to Marx. After receiving it, he promises them commendations from their respective agencies and also closes the investigation into Mace. To celebrate the end of the mission, the girls go out to drink, and they tell each other about their experiences. There, Marie opens up about her father's betrayal and how she was the one who turned him in. In the end, they offer her more drinks to console her, because she clearly needs it. Meanwhile, back at the office, Mark starts packing up, but suddenly feels threatened. He pulls out his weapon, but unfortunately, he's too slow for his opponent. Out of nowhere, an Asian woman knocks him down and shoots him. Switching back to the girls' night, Mace sees the news about 6 plane crashes, possibly caused by terrorists. She immediately tries to call Marks, but he doesn't pick up. The girls go over to his office, but they only find his dead body.
Company.
Suddenly, Agent Grady barges in with his men and accuses Mace of killing Marks. Mace tries to defend herself, but Grady doesn't listen because he has it in for her. Soon a shootout occurs, and Grady ends up losing. Mace knocks him out and leaves with her teammates. After escaping the CIA, Marie reports back to her boss, but she finds out that he doesn't trust her. She ends the call with him and destroys her phone. To find the destination of the drive, the girls head back to Morocco and kidnap the person they stole it from. By shooting his femoral artery, they convince our Moroccan brother, and he tells them the device will be auctioned in Shanghai. A day later, the girls arrive in Shanghai. Graciela calls her family once again, and Khadija calls her boyfriend. After this, they formulate a plan to get the device at the auction. Khadija gives them cameras and comms, with which they will be connected at all times. She also hacked into the system and put their names on the guest list. That night, they entered the auction house without a fuss and set their sights on the goal. Also, the auction is a legitimate one, but the device will be hidden inside one of the materials being auctioned. However, the real bidding will be done on the phone using the dark net. Hence, to find out which item is hiding the device, they have to rely on their social skills, flirting. Before the auction starts, Khadija sneaks into the bathroom ceiling and uses it as her base. She gives information about the guests to Mace and Marie, and they end up stealing the program book from one of them. Also, Graciela is approached by one of the guests, and she's required to flirt with him. Using the program as a guide, Khadija instructs Graciela to find out which item her guest will be bidding on. Graciela unlocks her cougar skills and gets the information from the rich, dumb man. Soon she finds out that the device is hidden in the vase, which is the last item to be bid on.
Here you go.
Meanwhile, Mace notices someone familiar in the crowd and ends up following the person. Suddenly, she's dragged into a different room by Nick. This surprises everyone, as they believe Nick to be with his creator. Just then, Nick tells her that he's working for himself and not the CIA. Nevertheless, the auction begins, and the auctioneer turns out to be the same woman who killed Marks. Also, Khadija suddenly gets pushed out of the network by another hacker. She quickly leaves the ceiling and tries to fight the hack. Soon, the vase arrives, and the bidding begins. Since Khadija doesn't have access to the system anymore, they can't steal the device without getting caught. The only option they have is to get the device locked to the tracker again. Meanwhile, Nick tries to convince Mace to stop working for the CIA and join him instead. However, she refuses, and he leaves her in the room. She also tries to leave, but a guard stops her, and they start fighting. Nick heads over to the auction and starts bidding physically, but also on the dark web. His bid over there is already at $500 million, and soon the vase will be sold. However, Graciela manages to throw her purse, which hides the tracker, close to the vase, which allows Khadija to lock the tracker to the device. Nick goes over to the auctioneer's office to check the authenticity of the device, while Khadija and Marie trace it. Just then, Marie uses her skill to cause an explosion, which alerts Nick and the auctioneer. The auctioneer sends her security team to get a hold of them, while Nick takes the device and dips. Mace, by the way, has also gotten the better of the guard and is on her way out. Khadija and Marie, on the other hand, have been surrounded by the security team. But strangely, the auctioneer lets them go. Outside, they see Mace pointing a gun at Nick, but she doesn't shoot him, not until after leaving in his car. They quickly rush to meet her, but the police are already closing in on them. Suddenly, The auctioneer comes to save them, and they leave in her vehicle. In the vehicle, she introduces herself as Li Min Sheng, and she works for the ministry. On getting to her hideout, she tells them the truth about the auction. With her father present, she shows them the pictures of the attendants and how the auction has helped them collect information on all of them. Also, she claims they didn't sell the drive, and she tells her father to show it to them. Furthermore, Marks and Nick are both working for Elijah Clark, and she had to stop him before he could do more. Meanwhile, in Elijah's house, Nick asks for his cut after delivering the device to him. However, Elijah pulls out a gun instead and tells him the device he brought was a dud. As punishment for losing $500 million, he beats the crap out of him. After getting beaten up by his boss, he heads over to Mi Sheng's hideout and bursts in with his men. They hold the girls at gunpoint, and also Mi Sheng's father. He asks Mi Sheng for the drive, but she doesn't tell him anything. He then proceeds to show them the monitor, and in there, all of their loved ones are held at gunpoint. Graciela starts to cry while Nix asks for the device again. Still, Mi Sheng gives no reply, so her father is killed first. Marie's boss gets killed next, and after that, Khadijah's boyfriend. On getting to Graciela's family, Mi Sheng shows Nick the drive. He takes it and leaves Graciela's family alive. However, he takes Mi Sheng with him to confirm the device's authenticity. After they leave, the girls notice something on the monitor, and it turns out to be Mi Sheng, giving them a live feed of her movement through her glasses. Before heading to her location, which is a hotel, Marie finds Mi Sheng's stash of weapons, and they take them along. After getting to the hotel, they settled in the room just above Nick's. Mi Sheng, on the other hand, tries to unlock the device for Nick, and unknown to her, the girls are preparing to blow up the roof of the room with C4 explosives. However, they have little time before Mi Sheng decodes the device. So Mace heads to Nick's floor first by climbing down the rails. Just then, Mi Sheng finishes her job, and she is dragged out. However, after walking for a bit, she starts handing out beatings to the guards, and Mace, who's at the railing, does the same to the guard close to her. Upon sensing the commotion, Nick sips his bourbon and tries to join in, but suddenly, the explosion goes off. It knocks him to the ground and almost throws Mace off the building. Thankfully, she hangs onto the railing and climbs back up. Marie and Khadijah, on the other hand, jump in, gun blazing. While Graciela takes the elevator and tips them off about the guards outside, May soon joins in on the fun, but her real target is Nick. As soon as she sees him, she starts beating him up like he owes her rent. After dealing with him, she joins Khadijah and Marie as they deal with the guards inside and outside. In the end, the device ends up in Marie's hand, but while they celebrate, Nick shoots her. He then tries to shoot Mace, but Graciela arrives in time and shoots him. Afterwards, the police arrive at the scene, and Mi Sheng asks for a phone call. 2 months later, Nick pays Elijah a visit after hearing he put a hit out on him. Elijah tries to buy him off, but Nick ends up burying a buttload of bullets in his brain. Surprisingly, at the CIA headquarters, Nick gets promoted and even receives a new mission from Agent Grady, despite being shady. Mace and her friends, however, are the ones on the run. Consequently, Nick gets home from work and sees Mace waiting for him. He offers her a drink with ice, but she insists he serve her without the ice. They both start to talk, but Nick suddenly starts to feel dizzy. Soon, the girls emerge from the shadows, and Mi Sheng tells him the ice was poisoned. After hearing this, Nick knows he's cooked, but tells Mace that killing him won't solve anything. On the contrary, the poison isn't to kill him. The plan is to lock him up in a cell on the other side of the world, where he'll spend the rest of his life. Nick loses consciousness after hearing this, and the girls walk out triumphant. After defeating their common enemy, the girls bid one another farewell and head their separate ways. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video.